Hello, everyone. I'm just wondering if we are connected. Connecting. Anyway, I hope you can hear us. Welcome back. I hope you had a very good lunch break, coffee break. And as you see, I'm joining in from Europe, Belgium to be precise. And I'm very proud to be here. It's especially a very nice thing today. And we're going into a new section, part 3 of today, and it's called Getting Ready for AI. And we start with a fire chat with Bruno Abrioux, but I learned that he also has a different last name, which is Tanako. So it's a nice bridge to have Europe and Asia combined. So Bruno, the floor is yours, and have a very nice fire chat with the audience.
Thank you for the introduction, Koen. Actually, it's Takano, but it was close to it. So it's
my apologies.
Indeed, no problem. So it's indeed my great privilege today to welcome Colin Priest from DataRobot, VP AI Strategy, as well as Philipp, you can see him on the screen, CEO at lawpilots. And we will be together for 20 minutes on a fireside chat on the theme workforce education, preparing for AI. So obviously we've got a lot to cover here, but still we would like to keep a bit of time for questions. So if you have any questions during the session, bring that in the Q&A. And at the end of the session, we try to pick some of your questions and answer them. Now, without further ado, I'd like both Colin and Philipp to have a very short introduction of themselves and the company, please. Floor is yours, Colin and Philipp.
Hi, I'm Colin. I'm based in Singapore. I'm a data scientist, a business executive, and an educator. I work for DataRobot, and we're in the business of production lining the design, deployment, and governance of your AI systems.
Thank you, Colin. Philipp?
Hi, everybody. My name is Philipp. I'm the co-founder and CEO of a company called lawpilots. We offer innovative e-learnings in the area of data privacy, compliance, and IT security. And I'm a business guy, and I love to found companies. And today it's early here in Berlin. It's 7 o'clock in the morning. So hi, everybody, and good morning.
So yeah, thank you, Philipp, for joining so early. Actually, that's great. The interesting point, if I look, we've got Colin, native English speaker, Philipp, German speaker, and oui, monsieur, oui, madame, myself, French speaker. In the audience, we've got Koen from Belgium, we've got Japanese people, Chinese people, European listeners, and many others. So one thing is that I expect in the not so distant future that for this type of fireside chat, we will all speak our native language, and that very probably there will be an AI-based interpreter that will deliver in real-time discussion to each one of us in our preferred language, right? I think that's a fair expectation on AI. So, Colin, Philipp, let me ask you this question. Will AI take interpreters' jobs? Or let's think it more broadly. How much, if you look at all jobs, how much or how far do you expect AI to take human jobs? And what does it mean in terms of retraining the workforce?
Okay, so just to give a background first, the current generation of AI is what we call narrow AI. It only knows what it's taught, it does tasks, not jobs, and it's really good at inhuman tasks that employees hate doing. So if we talk about that interpreter role, for example, you can train an AI to interpret language. What you can't train it to do is to catch the subtleties of language. So where, for example, I'm using sarcasm or irony, it's going to really, really struggle with that. You need humans with their broader general knowledge and empathy to be good at those types of things. It's the same in the normal world. AI is not going to take jobs, but it is going to do tasks. So a human job is multiple tasks. You can automate bits of that, and we already have. There's nothing new about that. So what we're going to do is automate the stuff that is inhuman, the stuff we actually hate doing, that annoying admin, those annoying rubber stamping jobs. What it's not going to be able to do is the stuff that's human that we actually love doing, the creative part, the dealing with other humans.
Thank you, Colin. And Philipp, please, on your side.
Yeah, there's actually not much to add, Colin. Thanks for summarizing. I'm completely I'm on your side, and I think there is a a long journey that AI will take a complete job from someone. But and that's something I thought about as well. It's about the task which will be taken, and something which is easier to draft. So the first versions of something, that's something where I can really chip in and can really help, and maybe we can speak about it a bit more at the end of the talk.
Yeah, thank you, Philipp. And actually, that's a great transition to dig into a bit more concrete point here. So I like your own perspective in relation to your business, right? You are in the education space, right? You offer legal, regulatory knowledge courses designed for employees, right? So in your education business, where do you see AI taking over some jobs potentially, right, in what you do as a business? And where do you see your employees having a comparative advantage to AI in the context of your business?
Thanks for the question. So we think that AI will take over some tasks, as I said. Maybe in the future some human resources, but the good thing is that law text or legal texts are pretty standardized with similar patterns, especially when it comes to privacy and compliance topics. So the idea is maybe at one point to build an engine which allows to kind of throw in different data, and basically that these difficult topics, for example, data privacy or different compliance topics, will digest from legal language to common and understandable language. That's what we do at lawpilots at the moment with human resources. So we sit down there for weeks, for hours, to really translate difficult topics, difficult language, legal language, to understandable language that everyone in the company understands what these different topics are about. So I think that's really the task that AI can help there to help to digest that. And of course, you need a lot of data points. But the good thing, as I said, is that the legal texts and the different privacy acts are pretty similar all over the world. So let's say, we can use a lot of similar patterns to then build maybe e-learnings at one point, or at least to prepare them.
Yeah, yes, thank you. And I think if you can bring something to put legal text in layman terms for me, contracts, whatever, that would help. I would appreciate, as everyone here, unless you are from the legal side.
And maybe one quick sentence about what Colin said is that because our trainings are fun and we have some jokes in there, and that's the big problem. So that's something we work on.
Players can tell jokes.
The question is if I can help there.
Thanks. And actually, that's next to Colin, the same questions. And I like your view. I mean, Colin, from your job, obviously, you follow many AI projects across many industries, right? So I like your bird eye view, if I may say so, on the same question of relative strength of AI compared to human. And eventually, if you can take an example, a concrete example on AI-based RegTech project, what did you see happening?
Yeah, so if we look at like anti-money laundering as an example, pretty much every bank and financial institution has to have that. And what's happened traditionally, there was a bunch of manual rules that humans came up with that would flag things, and then it'd go to a huge team of people that would go through and rubber stamp and check things. So gradually AI is becoming a natural part of that, because AI is much better than these broad-based rules. It's much more sophisticated, and it can look at combinations of things. So you get a lot fewer false positives. Like in anti-money laundering, that's also an issue. The false negatives are an issue, but false positives are. A bank locked up my wife's money for 3 months, 18 months ago, because there was a false positive. They thought she was a money launderer. It's just nonsense. She's a money spender. But I'm starting to see that it's not that they want to replace humans, particularly in Asia. What they want to do is free up some of those staff from those boring tasks that are really nothing more than rubber stamping, going, no, that was a false alarm. Rubber stamp. No one as a kid dreams of doing that for a job when they're an adult. What it frees them up to do is go and delve more into the difficult ones, but also to explore new ways that money laundering may be happening, because an AI only knows what it's learned, and it only learns what has already happened in the past. So if money launderers come up with a new way of doing things, AI will go, no, perfectly okay. You need humans involved. And that's what I love to see, is that the banks, particularly in Asia, less so in the US, but in Asia, they're saying we want to free up these staff to go and investigate new ways things happen, so we have fewer false negatives. So it's augmenting humans rather than replacing them.
Yes, and what does it mean in terms of skills? Because obviously you have those AI co-workers, if I may say so, so taking potentially the boring job, looking and at reducing the false positive. Indeed, it's an important problem on AML. But does it mean, obviously, for the workforce that they have to develop new skills?
Yeah. Well, it's more that they already have these skills. They just need to spend more time on it and get more sophisticated at it. So these people that do anti-money laundering, they are not purely procedural. Unfortunately, too much of their time is. But they have to do critical thinking. They have to look at things and not just go, here's a procedure. They have to look at, does that look right or does that look wrong? And think about it. Mm-hmm. They also have to think out of the box, and put wear someone else's shoes in their head. If I was a crook, how would I do this? How would I try and hide it, or how would I try and get this around? And then go and look for that. That's the sort of thing that we're going to be looking more and more for in humans, that critical thinking, that creative thinking, that empathy, those sorts of things that AI certainly isn't going to have any time during the next couple of decades, and probably never.
Yeah, and I'll get back to that in the next question, actually. I'd like to comment on one thing here, because what you said is a good transition on the workforce education. So I would like us to look at the type of skills that workers will need to develop, indeed, in a society where you've got more and more AI embedded in many solutions and work. So if I may comment from my digital transformation consultancy work, there is one thing I recurringly observe, is that there is an obvious knowledge gap between non-technologists and workers or people with a STEM background. So this is very true in artificial intelligence. This is true as well in cybersecurity and other topics. And very often that leads to misconceptions, erroneous perceptions, because these are complex topics and not everyone is a technologist. Now, my question here is probably for Philipp. Does it mean that with the advance of AI, we've reached a stage whereby any worker, regardless of their role, regardless of their function in an organization, they should develop basic literacy in topics such as data governance, cybersecurity, fundamentals of AI? What's your view on that?
Yeah, good question. Thanks a lot. So what I think is, and what I really feel is that it's super important for every employee to really get trained in these topics. And that's what we feel as well, that, for example, big law firms train their lawyers nowadays in topics of AI, cloud computing, like all these tech topics, let's say, because they are not used to these topics. So for me personally, as an employer, it's important that my team, of course, and the employees understand tools, the whole idea about communication from Slack to Drive to video chat, and away from, let's say, the typical how does a fax works and what is a letter and what is a flyer. So I think that's far away. So really tech. So it means that the whole communication inside the company is completely digital, or could be digital and completely virtually. And that these topics are really trained so that, let's say, every employee understands what AI is as well about, and what that really means in the future to then develop our product as well, and not our product, maybe every product in different companies as well, but that the basics are set, let's say. Because sometimes I'm astonished that people, they don't have a LinkedIn account, they don't know how to send a proper email, and that's in 2021, that's for me as a digital native and a digital nomad, that's standard, and that's my cup of tea. And I'm not an AI expert, let's say, but I know the world around it, and that's, I think, important. So it's important for HR to understand that and to hire people who have a common knowledge, let's say, to be productive as well in the company.
I like to compare it to learning a spreadsheet. I am so old that when I started my career, there were no spreadsheets. And when they first came out, there was like one computer that the whole team shared, but you're only allowed to use it if you're really, really technical. That doesn't work. So nowadays, everyone has a spreadsheet. I have one on my phone. It's just normal, and that's what we're going to have. It's, not everyone can write complex macros in Excel, but pretty much everyone can use a spreadsheet nowadays, and that's where we need to get to.
Okay, so yeah, you are aligned here in what you say with Philipp, whereby everyone will need to develop a certain level of fundamental literacy in those technology-related topics like AI. And actually, Colin, here I'd like to go back on your other comment, on your previous comment around here we were talking about hard skills, but about soft skills. So let me put it that way. I've got kids, so I like to know, from you, what should you recommend my kids to develop in terms of skills to succeed in tomorrow's world and workforce?
The top thing that you need to develop is critical thinking. The ability to question the status quo, to question the rules, to question what you're being shown. AI can't do that, by the way. AI assumes that what you're telling it is the truth and that what it knows is always right. It doesn't step out of the box. So what you've got to do is become an active learner. So this is probably of interest to Philipp. Rather than just passively receiving information, we have to learn a different way and learn to learn a different way, being more interactive, questioning things more. So that's the top one, critical thinking. I highly recommend doing broader degrees. So even if you want to do STEM, do something that's more in the social sciences or even in the arts with that. And I know that if you're going to be a lawyer, you have to do broader education, which is a great thing. But they should make everyone do that because it forces you to step out and think outside of the box. The next one is creativity. And I don't just mean the ability to paint a picture or draw a picture, because I can't do that. It's more about the imagining a different way of doing things. Understanding when the rules don't apply, because AI and computers will just enforce the rules all the time. And sometimes the rules don't make sense. They're actually stopping you from being successful. There's also, there's going to be an increased demand for individualization, things built by artisans. AI is going to do things at scale, but people still want things. So you can go to a fast food joint for food, but you go to a restaurant for good food. And there's a difference between those two things. One is standardized, one is artisanal. And designing, inventing new products. We need humans for that. And then third of the four, emotional intelligence and empathy. Your customers want to deal with a human whenever they're overly emotional, whenever they're confused, or whenever they are in a situation that requires extraordinary levels of trust. They do not trust computers, even if computers are better than humans, because we're hardwired to read body language, we're hardwired to connect to other humans. And the final one, which is related to this, is persuasion and negotiation. We still need salespeople. We still need people that go out and evangelize ideas within the organization or outside of the organization. We need people to manage other people and have that ability to build a team. Now, these four skills are going to be absolutely critical because they're not something AI will be able to do.
Okay, thank you. And actually, I've got one more question here. We are 2 minutes away from the end of the session. And it's a question for both of you, where should we learn about AI and ethics? I think it's a critical matter. Where should that be taught? Whose responsibility that is that? And where should we learn that?
Maybe Colin, and then I follow.
A bit of blatant self-promotion. Hop on the DataRobot blogs section and read my blogs about AI ethics. The thing to do is not to think of ethics as rules, but about questions to ask, because Ethics is about values and prioritization of values. It's not, this is right, this is wrong, I'm forcing those values upon you. There are some great thought leaders out there as well. I found just doing a Google on what is ethics and looking at the basic principles was a great start.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect start. And what I said before is really that inside the company, I think the HR department is responsible for at least setting up the basics and for employees so that they understand what AI is about. I mean, we are an e-learning provider, so we don't offer these trainings yet, but maybe in the future, because some companies ask us to maybe set up a course to understand on a very basic level what AI is about and what that means and what ethics are really in that sense. So, but I think understanding the basics out there, and read Colin's blog.
Yeah, we run a training course in it as well. But what I do notice is that companies are increasingly wanting to hire AI ethicists, but they're often wanting them to be combined with legal background to look at compliance issues.
Interesting in the context of RegTech, and I think we've reached actually the time. We've exceeded by 1 minute, so I have to close. I'm sorry, Koen, for our short extension.
No problem.
Thank you very much, Philipp and Colin, for sharing your views here. I hope it was instructive for everyone. And anyway, the same discussion or the discussion on similar topics will go on, and there is much more to learn from the next speakers, I'm sure. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, you're totally right, Bruno. I really enjoyed it. And people say sometimes culture eats strategy for breakfast, but I feel that I had breakfast with AI discussions and fire chat. So it really lightened my day. And I would like to give the floor to Shiwan because that will be the next session, of course, on AI. So here we go.
Thank you. Goodbye.